survey was asked for the environments recently, and total 71.8% of the participants answered that they have made any effort. 71.8% out of 100 may seem like a big number. However, we cannot conclude that sufficient effort was made in order to alleviate environmental problems because above the three questions, the students who answered yes and no had the least difference in their number. Therefore, more active preparations and actions in order to alleviate environmental problems should be required.
Results for our last questions prove us that society can still get over climate issue. Out of 177 students that participated, 82.5% answered that they will put in more effort to solve and pay attention to climate issues if they learn that it has any relations with the economy. This has the highest proportion of students that have answered yes out of the three questions. Though climate change is getting continuously severe, just like a butterfly effect, if each and every one of us make a small change, it is assured to lead to big results.
Economy is highly influenced by external forces and interacts with each other. Both the economic issues and environmental problems doesn't stand alone itself, but rather interacts with other elements, so that by this fact, we can recognize the importance of associating various elements and finding for social enhancements. Circular economy is an economic system that relies on the eco-friendly economic model. It specifically notes on the sustainability of environment throughout reusing and saving resources. Hence, circular economy allows humanities to overcome environmental and economic difficulties and problems. So to illustrate, circular economy is estimated to reduce half of the carbon emissions between the current and 1.5 degrees target.
The main purpose of circular economy is to offer new and innovative mitigation solutions that are mostly left undiscovered yet urgently needed. Corporations should set up economic systems that establish environmental benefits. Individuals should support circular economy as rightful consumers. Nations should set policies that promote industries simultaneously alleviate environmental issues. For example, Germany proceeded with domestic projects in using wood as a substitute of concrete due to the environmental harm concrete causes. Finally, global endeavors should compromise and negotiate between the countries. Each country should state not to produce products that threaten the environment.
In conclusion, environment and economy has a lot of associations with each other and interacts in a lot of aspects. And the major aspect includes the points of wealth disparity, labor efficiency, and economic burden. Individuals should have better consciousness and recognition about the association between these two areas, and we should find better solution and move into our action.
Global interest and consideration toward the combination of environmental and economic notions should be commonly required to all of us. Not only about each country and corporation's responsibilities, every one of us should realize that we are a part of a society and also the ones who should actively correspond in making an ideal society. Thank you for listening.
Okay, wow, very nice. I love that you actually took a survey from the school as well. Over here, sorry. That was nice. And for the 17.5% of the students at the school that said they wouldn't help the environment, well, at least you're honest. Okay, you have that going for you. But we have our next presentation, and it is going to be about Coptic Christian discrimination by Han Chae. Please give a round of applause. Welcome to the stage.
Hello, I'm 2019 Jaehyun and I'm presenting you about the Coptic persecution in Egypt. Coptic Christians are a Christian group in Egypt, and because Egypt is an Islamic country, they have been constantly persecuted, especially by Islamic extremists and fundamentalist groups like IS. I was interested to learn that Coptic Christians have been discriminated against that church for almost 2,000 years. The Coptic, I'll introduce about the history of Coptic Christianity first. The Coptic Church was founded in the first century by Mark the Evangelist. And in the 5th century, a national conference between Christian churches, which is called the Council, the Coptic Church diverged from other Christian churches, and this may explain why they have their own pope and celebrate their Christmas on January 7th instead of December 25th. But even before being divided from other Christian groups, they were already being persecuted by Roman rulers. Many Coptic Christians were killed, especially under the Emperor Diocletian. He is known for his harsh persecution against Christians, not only Coptic Christians, but all the Christians in Rome. And he thought if we could get rid of all the Christians in Egypt, he could do the same for the rest of the world. And, also, the Coptic calendar begins the year Diocletian killed countless Coptic followers. And after Rome, Egypt was conquered by the Byzantine Empire. An interesting fact is the Coptic Christians almost welcomed and helped the Islamic rulers that came after the Byzantine Empire due to the persecution they suffered under the Byzantine was so harsh. At first, there was no conflict between Islam and the Coptic Christians. However, Copts soon lost most of their rights. They especially suffered during the reign of Umayyad and Abbasid Caliphates. Caliphates were kind of Islamic kingdom. The persecution under the caliphates included genocide and the destruction of churches, and also they have to pay an enormous amount of taxes, including jizya, and one for non-Muslims, and that became a huge financial burden for Christians. The Copts don't actually rebelled against the Islamic rulers, but they were easily suppressed. And during the time, most Egyptians converted to Islam, and this is why Egypt is an Islamic country today. After the Islam Caliphate, France and Britain conquered and ruled over those people. And while the French gave some religious freedoms for the Coptic Christians, the British did not. The Egyptian Revolution of 1952 gave the hopes of abolishing discriminations. Just like at the beginning of Islamic era, Coptic Christians and Muslims had a great relationship. It's not true. Islamic extremists appeared, extremists and fundamentalists. This is why the Copts are still being persecuted today. Actually, most Egyptian Muslims accept the Coptic Christians as a part of those Egyptian society. For example, during the 2011 revolution, Muslims and Christians protested together for their democracy. Regardless, the number of hate crimes against Coptic Christians by extreme terrorist groups like Muslim Brotherhood and IS have not decreased at all. I will now show you some examples of persecution against the Copts. Those are the examples of the terror against the Copts, which were all committed by IS. They attacked Coptic churches, killing countless number of Coptic Christians. At one time, the government, even the Egyptian government, ignored those atrocities, but fortunately, recently, it is now responding kind of actively. For example, they have declared a national emergency for the terror in the second picture. And this is Manshia Nasir, a garbage town located in Cairo, capital of Egypt. Most of the residents living in this town are Christians. And they are called Sabalin, which means garbage people in Egyptian Arabic. They collect garbage to make their living, and the village was established due to the discrimination against those people in Egyptian society in the past. And these Christian girls were kidnapped by Muslims and forcibly married and converted to Islam. This continues to happen in Egypt. Many of the situations are related to human trafficking, which means selling and buying people. And according to an Egyptian NGO, between January 2013 and March 2014, no, January 2011 and March 2014, I'm sorry, 550 Coptic girls were kidnapped and forced to convert to Islam and forced to marry their captors. More than 500 girls were kidnapped in only 3 years. The poor human rights and conditions of women in Egypt affected the situation as well. Now, what can we do to help these people? Wouldn't it be helpful for all of us to educate ourselves on various religious issues like this so that we can take some kind of action? It may seem kind of unrealistic, but what other way do we have? In order to everyone in Earth to live in peace, we have to do the best we can, and unfortunately, this is the best for us. You may forget about Coptic Christians, but please remember that people around the world are still being persecuted because of their religious beliefs. I ask that you show that you are aware and care about what is going on. Thank you for listening.
All right. Wonderful job in your presentation. Very deep topic, really. Hopefully we can lighten the mood a little bit with our next presentation. We are going to be looking at World Snacks Mukbang. So please welcome to the stage. We have a group of people. Give them a round of applause, please. We have Yi, Hansen, Tom, Xiu, and Dr. Chunzao.
Hello, we are 101 Yansen, Jiangxi, and Park Junso worked hard but couldn't come due to COVID-19 self-quarantine. We will show you the cooking process of various snacks around the world that we made ourselves in the video on the subject of World Snack Mukbang. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
I'll give you two choices. If you take the blue pill, your entire life will be spent in Korea. You'll never get to experience any other culture, and all of the cultures that you know will be Korean. However, if you take the red pill, you will slowly but surely learn about other countries' cultures too. It might be scary sometimes, but it'll turn out to be beneficial. Which pill would you choose? You want the red pill? You don't? But I don't know which pill you want, but just take the red pill. The blue pill tastes way better, so I'm going to take it.
We'll start off by talking about gulab jamun, which is a traditional Indian snack. Jongxian will explain this for us, so listen carefully.
Hello, I'm Shion. Nice to meet you. Now we are going to talk about gulab jamuns. The word gulab comes from the Persian word gulab, which means rose water, and jamun is herded word from a hadam tree, a type of plant belonging to the family Ammonium. It is derived from the fact that a king of ancient India wanted to eat the mandarin fruit, but when it boiled, the court cook boiled the milk of a water buffalo to make it in the form of a mandarin fruit, and then sprinkle rose water to eat it. It is similar in size and shape to the Abvisli fruit. To make it, first mix sugar and water in a pot in a ratio of 1 to 2. Put it on the fire and then melt the sugar to make syrup. When the sugar is all dissolved, turn off the heat and add cardamom powder. Turn off the heat and add cardamom powder and saffron. Instead of cardamom and saffron, you can add rose water or rose essence to give it a rose scent. When the syrup is complete, make milk balls and ripen it in syrup for 2 hours.
Now we'll talk about a traditional snack from Mexico called the nachos. Park Junso will explain this, so listen carefully. For the nachos, you need refried beans. So here's the process of me making it. For refried beans, it's simple. Beans, onion, cilantro, lime juice. Crush them up and mix them until it tastes good. Always tastes good. We're done with the beans, so we can now get into the main game. Nachos. You need ground beef and onions. Stir them until they're cooked. Also add some spices and the beans. A person named Ignacio Anaya created the dish in 1940. The original nachos consisted of fried tortilla chips covered with melted cheese and sliced jalapeno peppers. So basically, Ignacio Anaya was looking for a creative food, something that would be eaten as a snack. He came up with nachos that actually blew up, so he opened a restaurant. We should really thank this guy for making such a good snack. Like, I had nachos all the time when I was in the US because I lived in Texas for a bit, and that's like right above Mexico, so what you're seeing right now is cheese shredding hell. It's a real place, and it's really hard there, but the results you get from going there is great. Jalapenos just add a completely new flavor to the nachos. It's really spicy and it's also pickled, so it's sour and spicy at the same time. How can something be better than that? Now we want to put the nachos in the oven. You want to keep it in the oven until the cheese starts melting. Fun fact, October 21st was declared the International Nacho Day. The nachos are done cooking. I'll plate these nachos so they look as cool as I can make them. Nachos are really good. I would give them a 9.7 out of 10. They're spicy, they're salty, they're sour, they have a lot of taste to them. The only reason why I'm not giving them a 10 out of 10 is because the nachos sometimes hurt your teeth. We will wrap up this presentation with our final snack, dorayaki. Ian Zung will be presenting this for us.
Hello everyone, now I'm going to explain dorayaki. Dorayaki is a Japanese confectionery made with a mixture of flour, egg, and sugar, and then baked it into a flat sheet with red bean paste placed between the two sides. You can think of it as a simple red bean bread. First, prepare an egg and a half, 80 grams sugar, 30 grams starch syrup, 40 gram water, 15 gram melted butter, 130 gram soft flour, 4 gram baking powder, and an appropriate amount of whole red bean paste. First, mix eggs, sugar, and starch syrup in a bowl. Second, add water, melted butter, and mix. Third, add a pinch of soft flour and baking powder and keep mixing. I'm going to bake it now. Continue to bake over low heat, and when air bubble rise, turn the dough over. And after baking the other side, spread red bean paste and sand it. Now overlap.
Skip, skip. 20 minutes later.
This is today's finished dish. It looks weird, but it tastes good.
Mmm, tastes good.
All right, thank you so much. Wow, such an entertaining video. Really nicely edited too. All right, for our next presentation, we have culture and clothes around the world. And this will be another group. Give a round of applause, please. Welcome them to the stage. Oh, Suan, Ihanji, Ji, So.
Hello, I'm 10313 Yanti, and they are 10306 Osan and 10315 Jisoya. We're here to present our Global Day project, which is combining traditional clothes from all around the world. Before we start, let me ask you a question. What is hanbok to you? I mean, what does traditional clothes mean to you? When you think of hanbok, you think of pride and wisdom of our ancestors. Like this, traditional clothes is important to everyone, to every country. Since traditional clothes or clothing are costumes that are worn to indicate national, culture, or religious identity, it reflects a period of time and one's place in the society. And the fact that traditional clothes is important to everyone and is something that everyone can emphasize, it has become the motive of starting our project. From now on, we're going to explain our content and start the presentation. First of all, we're going to explain our main idea and our key point. And secondly, we're going to introduce the clothes that we combine. Lastly, we will conclude with the lessons that we learned by this project.
The keyword that we chose for this project is respect. The reason why we started this project is to respect the traditional clothes of countries worldwide. So we combine the traditional clothes of our country and other countries. Now, from now on, we are going to present our core contents which is the part where we introduce our host. Before we start, what is clothing culture? Clothing reflects the beliefs of individuals and groups. Religious groups often adopt a certain style of clothing, and the beliefs about magic and luck have been held by people of many cultures.
Now we are going to introduce the clothes that we combine. The first clothes that we're going to introduce is the clothes that I designed, which is a combination of Lando and combo. Let's see a short clip first.
Promis im Wiesenwahnsinn, ob Monika Ivanka an Verena Kiert, Claudia Effenberg oder Karin Witt. Alle fiebern dem Oktoberfest entgegen und treffen die letzten Vorbereitungen. Wir waren mit dabei und haben einmal
Have you seen the video? Dundel is a traditional German dress that has a white blouse with puff sleeves and a quarter-shaped vest, and a white skirt has a ribbon apron around it. Dundel actually have a really long history. I'm pretty sure that you're not interested in it, so let me tell you really short. Dundel is actually originated from a rural costume from the countryside, which looks like this. This was designed to move easily and do work and chores. This kind of dress was common in Europe by 16th to 18th century. However, because of trends and other factors, after 70 to the 80s, it got promoted to the modernized costume for the upper class, to the form that we know. So, I thought that the characteristic of the dundle would go well with our hanbok. So, as you can see in this doll, I decorate the upper part with the chogori of our hanbok for the outside, and then the dundle's vest in the inside as a point. And if you see the bottom part, you can see the modernized colorful apron as a point and a hanbok skirt on the under. And then lastly, I concluded with a Korean hat with a Chinese pattern as a point.
Second, we combine Indian traditional clothes sari and the Korean traditional hanbok. When I looked up the traditional clothes, I saw a sari with the colorful decorations. So I combined the traditional sari and the hanbok. When you look this doll, I decorated this upper part with the sari that has the colorful decorations, and the skirt is a hanbok that has a lace on it. A sari is a woman's garment from Indian subcontinent that consists of an unstitched half varying from 4.5 to 9 meters to 600 to 1,200 millimeters. So the sari is typically wrapped around the waist with one end draped over the shoulder. In the movie Aladdin, Jasmine is also wearing an Indian traditional clothes sari. I combined the traditional clothes sari with the colorful decoration and the hanbok. So due to this result, I made a combination of modern hanbok and sari, a colorful Indian dress. Typically, sari is worn in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. There is various styles of sari manufacture and draping. The most common is the Navy style. This is worn with a fitted bodice. It's commonly called a petticoat. In the modern Indian subcontinent, the sari is considered a cultural icon.
Lastly, the clothes I made is a combination of the Korean traditional costume and Canadian traditional costume. Before we start, there are two kinds of Canadian traditional costume. One is the clothes that were worn by the attire of the indigenous people, which is Askим costume. The other one is the red serge, the symbol of Canada. So I decided to mix the hanbok with the red serge.
More commonly known as the Mounties. But before they don the iconic scarlet tunic, known as the Red Serge, all cadets have to
The red serge is close for RCMP, short for Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The red serge consists of a scarlet tunic top, brown running boots, a light brown brim hat, and a brown little belt. In spite of having these wonderful features, as time goes on, the horse has been replaced by the car. Therefore, these days it remains as only a ceremonial uniform. And now, there is a separate uniform for work, and there's not very different from that of police in other countries. They are dressed in a light gray top, trousers and dark blue with gold stripes. A police officer's hat with gold stripes, black shoes, and the outer belt in black. When I was making this model, to make it as realistic as possible, I made upper part using red fabric, and little belt and back straps were made by cutting little myself. Little seems to be difficult to obtain separately, so I cut the belts to make them. Also, I made a hat by combining Korean traditional gown with brown hat from Canada. In particular, I wanted to express the yellow skirt part as real hanbok, so I used my parents' hanbok to make it. Don't you think the harmony of the red serge and our hanbok creates a great mood? Through this activity, we will able to get one step closer to the cultures of various countries around the world. And I think this project has changed the way we view the cultures of other countries. And we should enjoy. Thank you.
Wow, extremely talented. So impressive. I love those. Super, super cool. Can't believe you made those. The talent. Okay, next up we have Shin Chunu, and they will be presenting Moldova.
I am Shin and I'm going to present about the Republic of Moldova. Moldova is a country near Black Sea. It is between Romania and Ukraine. There are 3.5 million people who use Romanian and Russian as their languages. Based on favorable soil, agriculture is the most significant domain of their economy. Using the warm climate that the Black Sea provides, Moldova developed the wine industry. Even if they produce high-quality wines, Moldova is considered to be one of the poorest countries in Europe. And it is because of the historical facts and conflict with Transnistria. During World War II, Romania, which reverted Russian control at the First World War, established Moldavia Soviet Socialist Republic. In 1991, Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic made its independence. Next year, it became one of the members of the United Nations. Because of control under Russia, Moldovan culture changed, especially the folk culture. Typically, the dance and music were promoted by Soviet authorities, and original Romanian style was disappearing. Romanian cousins were alternated to Russian food. Also, their language was called Moldovan. Moldovan is also a state language written in Latin. However, it has only a few differences with Romanian. Today, Moldova's president warned his people to stop calling the language Moldovan and refer it to Romanian instead. It is because Moldovan is made by Soviets in order to separate Romania from Romania, separate Moldovan from Romania. Nowadays, Moldova is having a hard time due to Transnistria, which is trying the independence from Moldova. It is located next to the river Dnestr. This conflict is very serious because of the Transnistria war. During this war, more than 5,000 people was wounded. Ukraine and Russia supported Transnistria, while Romania is for Moldova. Moldova has almost every electricity generator in the region of Transnistria. As I mentioned, Moldova is one of the poorest countries. They can't produce any energy without the generators in there. Therefore, Moldova needed help, and Romania opened some of its borders to share energy and proceed with unification. As Moldova is preparing to unify with Romania, as Transnistria wants to do with Russia, as the scale of war is going to be bigger than the previous one. Today, Russian soldiers are stationed in Transnistria, and they can fight a war whenever they want. Preventing before occurring is the most important and effective way to stop the war and make a step towards global peace. I want to say that the Moldova needs more help and attention to prevent another Transnistria war.
Okay, everyone, how are you guys feeling? Pretty tired? No? Are you awake? Yeah, raise your hand if you're awake. All the students sitting, stand up real quick, stand up. Give yourself one big stretch. Stretch, yes, I know sitting is hard. Mr. Collins, I said students only, but thank you for participating. Okay, you can sit back down, thank you, sit back down. We do have 2 more presentations before we have break time. I just wanted to give you guys a second because I know sitting is very hard. Next up, we have Mongol History by Kim Hajun and Song Min Seo.
Hello, my name is 10123 Min Suk Song. And I am 10121 Kim Ha Ju. Today, we would like to talk about the Mongols. And obviously, we will start with this. Okay, let's talk about Genghis Khan. So, let me try again. Excuse me. It's supposed to play as an animation. Yes, I believe we have some technical issues with the video, so for now we will postpone turning on the video and we'll continue on with our main things. So we're first going to talk about Genghis Khan. Well, Genghis Khan at a bad time when he was young, his father was killed, and his relatives tried to kill him, so he had to run away to South Siberia. And even in there, he was captured by his enemy, so he was able to run away after a few years. But still, his luck was not really ended. Well, he went to father's friend, Onkan, and met his old friend called Jakuka, who helped to save his wife. But Onkan and Jakuka was afraid of Genghis Khan's ability and the rising of Genghis Khan's influence inside their clan. So they decided to betray Genghis Khan and attack them. Genghis Khan had a great loss to Onkan and Jakuka, so he had to run away. But because of the Mongol people's support, he was able to fight against Genghis Khan, Onkan and Jakuka, and finally he won. After being an empire of the Mongol, Genghis Khan's first target was Sia. Mongol attacked Sia for 6 times, and at the 3rd time, the king of Sia finally surrendered to the Mongols, and they had to send their army. Genghis Khan wanted a war. The next target of Genghis Khan was Jin Empire. Mongol mobilized 120,000 troops, while Jin Empire can mobilize 1 million troops. And 2 sides met in the place called Osaba, and by under General Zevis' Mongol army, who was one of the best general in history, Mongol had a great victory. And after this defeat, Jin Empire mobilized 104,000 more armies and attacked Mongols in Gyeongryong and Pyeongtaek, but they lost the both battles, and they lost. And finally, Jin Empire was collapsed. The east side of Mongols was collapsed and settled to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan tried to attack the west side, which was West Liao. In the West Liao, there was a prince of Naiman troop who fought against Genghis Khan. Well, the West Liao couldn't really fight Genghis Khan and collapsed. And after the West Liao's collapse, Genghis Khan attacked Khorasan. But the first time, Genghis Khan didn't really want to fight with Khorasan. So he sent his people saying, hey, you know what? I don't really want to fight with you. Maybe we could be a friend. But Khorasan king was fooled and he killed him. So Genghis Khan was really mad at Khorasan king. So he attacked Khorasan. Well, Khorasan king was fooled again. Khorasan king thought that Mongols are really weak at attacking a castle. So he decided to stay in the castle and he could make a win. But his prince, which his son, was different. Son's name was Jalaluddin. I know it's a fun name. Jalaluddin said, hey father, we have to fight with Mongols not defending because they're good at all the wars, and we're gonna lose if we just defend it. But the king just denied it, and Kharazm was collapsed. But still, his son was survived. And they tried to fight against Genghis Khan one more time, but he failed.
Now we reach our second chapter, Mongols' first year of conquest. So when Khwarezm's king was running away, Genghis Khan ordered Subutai and Zebe, the best generals of Mongol that time, to follow the king and kill him. But the king was dead. And the two thought, well, king is dead, but if we just return like this, Genghis Khan will be disappointed. We should attack other countries nearby and steal some things so that Genghis Khan will be happy. So they attacked the kingdom of Georgia, which was a very powerful country that had won against the Seljuk Turks 200 years ago. But they couldn't win this time. Then they attacked Azerbaijan. They can't even stand against the Mongols. When Mongols' army was returning, Russia started to attack Mongol. So if you're listening very carefully to us, you might question, why is Russia attacking Mongol? And the truth was this, Mongol attacked Kipchak. And when Kipchak heard that Mongol's army was returning, they thought that the Mongols would attack them again. So they persuaded Russia to attack Mongolia. Russia had 80,000 men, and Mongol only had 15,000. Who do you think won? Of course, the Mongols. Russia can't even fight against the well-skilled Mongol army, and most of the army were dead, and only KF's army were running away. Well, Mongol finally killed them all. But when the Mongols were returning, Zebe, one of the best generals of Mongol that time, died of a disease. But this wasn't the end of conquering Europe. After Genghis Khan died from a horse accident, the next Khan finished stabilizing the eastern side and began to attack the western side again.
Next Khan ordered Subutai and Batu, two both general, to attack Hungary. But to attack Hungary, the nearby Poland was an obstacle. So Subutai ordered Bader, not Darth Vader, just Bader, and the Kagan to invade Poland. But they only had 20,000 soldiers. But still, they had a great victory. They first attacked the city of Sandomir, which they won too easily, and they split the army to two. One was led by Vader, attacking the Baltic coast, and one was led by Kagan, attacking the southwest. Well, because of this Mongols' massive invading, Poland asked other countries for help. So Mongols thought that before the Alliance's armies arrive, we have to attack Poland. So Kagan's army and the king of Poland, Henry II, arrived into a plain called Bostad. And because of the Mongols' fake retreat strategy, Poland's cavalry was totally tricked, and they had to surround them and face the massive numbers of arrows. And Henry II had his head off. So Poland was settled, so obviously the next target was Hungary. At the time, Hungary had a kind of political issues because King of Poland and the king, aristocracy of Poland, Hungary, was fighting each other to take control of the army. And in this situation, Mohi Plain was the place both sides had a battle. They were in face-to-face across the river. And finally, Batu started to attack the only bridge with a sea swimmer. And and sending their cavalries. And while they were fighting, Subutai secretly had crossed the river and surrounded the Hungary army, and Hungary was totally lost in the battle. The Hungary king survived, and he ran away and began an alliance with Holy Roman Empire and Pope. While the other country was enthusiastic in fighting with the Mongols. But if you was thinking about another great battle, no, not this time, because the Khan of Mongols was dead and Batu had to retreat their army. And after that, Mongols had to split in 4 different countries. One was one which lasted longest and collapsed by Young Dynasty of China, and Kipchak Khanate, Ilkhanate, Chagatai Khanate, which gradually weakened and collapsed. And by the 15th century, Mongol had disappeared to the history.
So now we reach our final part, the Mongol influence. So first, let's look at some positive effects. They opened global trade. It opened Europe's age of discovery, which provided an opportunity for the overall development of Europe. Trade was actively carried out by connecting Europe and Asia, such as the development of the Silk Road. And Mongolia was tolerant and open-minded about religion and new technologies, which helped spread these things a lot. Now, we look at the neutral aspects. They changed the age. For example, there's Japan. Japanese samurai were rewarded with land if they won a battle at the time. But after defeating the Mongols, there was no reward. Samurais were dissatisfied with this, and they changed the government of Japan.
All right, I hate to cut you off there, but we're more about the time for this presentation. Do you have one more final thought to say?
Yes. And finally, we have the negative sides. So we are going to go on a bit quickly. So there are so many negative things that Mongolia has done. So to briefly summarize, there are theories about destruction of cultural assets, destruction of cities, arson and looting. They're the basics. And for that, Mongolia killed so many people at the time that the total carbon emission of the world decreased. So how cruel are the Mongols? Well, in severe cases, the Mongols killed all living things within the castles that fought against them. In other words, animals such as dogs, woof, and cats, meow, they're all killed. And China's population went from 120 million to just 60 million. It was devastated and destroyed to such an extent that it changed the economic foundation of the country. However, it would be unreasonable to view Mongolia as a savage and slaughter-loving nation just by thinking at these things, because it was part of their fear strategy rather than emotional. For 200 years, Mongol was the largest empire in the world, covering half of the planet's land. The vast empire and trade network and powerful army that Genghis Khan and his sons forged is astonishing.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop you there. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
We went over time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Okay, we have one more final presentation before break time. If you can come up to the stage, please give our final presentation a big round of applause. It is about global health.
listeners, and I'm scientist Lee Ji-won. And I'm scientist Lee Da-hyun. We are researching infectious diseases and hydrogen pathogens that are threatening our society. Hey Dion, have you heard that the WHO selected the 10 threats to global health? Why? What is it? Well, if people have to imagine contagious diseases, most people think about the COVID-19. However, there are far more diseases more fatal than the COVID-19, such as Ebola, which is caused by the Hydra pathogens. Oh, that's interesting. As new pathogens are continuously occurring, the issue must be really important to our global society. Right. Speaking of these viruses, have you heard the recent news about the Hydra pathogens? No. Why? Didn't you hear the recent case of Ebola virus? After the huge outbreak in 2014 to 2016 in West Africa, the Ebola epidemic seemed to have ended. However, August this year, a new case of Ebola was reported in Africa. In October, Congo has reported a new case of Ebola after declaring the end to Ebola 5 months ago. Also, there are many cases of Ebola in 25 years in Cote d'Ivoire. In addition, the Marburg virus infection has happened again with a mortality of 80%. What? The Ebola virus again? And the Marburg virus had a mortality rate of 80%. Can you believe it? If the Marburg virus was widely spread, it could have killed so many people. Next, we'll explain the Ebola virus and these hydra pathogens, what they are, the symptoms, the seriousness, and the types of these viruses through a short video. Wait, I want to ask you what hydra pathogens are. Of course I know, but the audience doesn't seem to understand. Oh, I forgot to talk about what hydra pathogens are. Well, these hydra pathogens have been defined by the World Health Organization as these viruses or diseases that are highly possible to lead to these public health emergencies, but they also lack these efficient virus vaccines and also treatments, making them much more virus deadly and viral. Let's move on to the video. Numerous hydra pathogens in the world, which are very deadly, killing billions of lives all around the world. Among these hydra pathogens, there is the COVID-19 virus, which we are still facing even through the presentation. The COVID-19 is a disease caused by coronavirus, leading to symptoms such as fever, cough, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell, headache, muscle pain, and so on. There are countless cases of infection, and numerous people have died from this virus. This virus is spread through droplet infection. Although there are no official treatment for this virus, many pharmaceutical companies have developed vaccines, which is globally used at this moment. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the entire humanity, especially in the aspects of our lifestyles. For instance, from economy to our education. It is now common to wear masks or socially distance, and everyday lives, it's just normal for us to go to online classes, not just in everyday classes, just like we are sitting here in front of us, teachers. And in Korea, the long-term pandemic has led to a time of with corona, meaning that we will now be adjusting and just be living with this virus, just like when the influenza pandemic was happened. However, the cases of the COVID-19 continue to rise rapidly. With these COVID-19 patients, the number rises continuously as time goes. As the COVID-19 is affecting our society, the importance of the impacts of hydra pathogens is becoming more emphasized at this moment. First, to speak about the economic aspects, the Ebola virus has led to massive socio-economic losses. According to the World Bank, estimated $2.2 billion was lost in GDP in 2015 in some nations such as Guinea and Liberia. Sierra Leone has lost 50% of its workforce due to this disease. This significant loss leads to additional damage in economic stability and world food crisis. In addition, the outbreak has resulted in less investment and income in private sector growth, worse cross-border trade, and agricultural production. The long-term economic crises are closely related to these political aspects of the outcome. A lot of nations have challenges between their citizens because of the credibility of the government decreasing due to these ongoing war states. In addition, the spread of the virus also led to intensified famine because of the developing countries having the substantial loss in agricultural production. There are also issues in the food security, and many of them suffer from the lack of food, suffering in famine. Lastly, the Ebola crisis has caused numerous problems in the aspects of medical. The spread of the virus has caused healthcare workers to be contracted, and in addition, the devastating effects of healthcare system have resulted in setbacks of controlling these other hybrid diseases such as HIV and malaria. These outcomes of the Ebola crisis and other public crises show the importance of preventing these issues firsthand and also preparing for future pandemics and epidemics. In addition, especially recently in the 21st century, more and more viruses are becoming infected through animals from the wildlife, which is frequently causing to global health threats. And these are also linked to environmental problems such as global warming or deforestation because these wildlife animals are coming to human inhabitation lands, leading to new outbreaks of new viruses which are fatal to humanity. The Ebola virus and other high-threat pathogens are not only contagious but also fatal to our health. As seen from this COVID pandemic, billions of people worldwide were infected and become to death, and the situation doesn't seem good in some nations. As time passes, these kinds of pathogens will continuously occur and put the world at risk. And finally making it out of the almost significance that there are more individuals to overcome the issue. Therefore, we find it very important for everyone to be putting effort into this issue. One of the most critical problems to solve this issue is that we don't have a lot of treatments for this disease. To prevent other pandemics, doctors are needed and also researchers should be researching and developing vaccines, which vaccines should be available all around the world, not just in specific countries such as developed countries, but especially in developing countries because these developing nations are where most outbreaks occur mainly. Especially as the world is on the stage of fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence and drones will assist humans to overcome this crisis. The highly developed technology will boost researching vaccines and treatments and with drones to make available to reach how to reach places. We have hope and a bright future for overcoming these diseases that are affecting our world. Most importantly, we are all aware of the issue and we are all putting effort as one society all around the world. We shout out to all of you to put more attention, be much more aware of these issues, and take action for a better society and for global peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are actually going to go on a short break time. It's a little bit under 10 minutes. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom, please do that now. However, if you do not have to go, I recommend you stay here because we will be restarting shortly. Thank you.
And first up, we're going to learn about the Sierra Leone Diamond War. So please welcome to the stage Hikaya, Isan, Jang Ji-won, and Che Ji-woo.
You ever heard about the Diamond War which occurred in Sierra Leone? We didn't expect many people already know about this topic. That is the reason why we decided to present about this war. Let me present about the contents briefly. First of all, we will explain about the country Sierra Leone, because Sierra Leone is a relatively unfamous country. Then, we will move on explaining about the Diamond War. We will present the cause, process of the war, and the aftermath of this war. Before we present about the country and the war, we want to present about the movie which is related to this war. The movie is called Blood Diamond. This movie is based on the Diamond War which occurred in Sierra Leone, and the background of this movie is Sierra Leone.
It came from the heart of the earth. A stone so rare, men will do anything to possess it. And all who touch it are left with blood on their hands.
That diamond is my ticket out of this God-forsaken continent.
So what are you?
Smuggler? You're a journalist. Some tell me you're here to make a difference, huh?
And you're here to make a buck?
Now in America it's bling bling, but out here it's bling bang. Where did you bury it? The only reason you're still alive is because you haven't told anyone where it is.
You will find it for me. My son! Where is my son?
What if I helped you find your family? That makes us partners!
I am not your partner!
You're using him.
I'm using him, and you are using me, and this is how it works.
You're gonna steal this diamond.
I am his father! I must go find him! Here to show us where it's hidden.
That diamond's the only chance he has of getting his son back.
What if I wanted to go with you?
Hold up!
I don't give a damn who's down there. Kill them all.
Give it to me. Tell him where it is. Tell him. My family, my home. I don't lost everything. I will find you. If it takes my life.
Sierra Leone is a country located on Atlantic coast of western continent of Africa. Sierra Leone, which borders Guinea and Liberia, is one of the relatively small countries. Sierra Leone capital is Freetown, and languages are English and Creole. This country is made of Islam, Christian, and indigenous religion. The climate is hot and humid tropical oceanic climate. It has an industrial structure of mining center on diamond, steel, and production of export crops such as cocoa, palms, coffee, and ginger.
In 1989, the war occurred in neighbor country of Sierra Leone, which is Liberia, and the winner of this war was Charles Taylor, who is former president of Liberia. Charles Taylor realized that there was a huge amount of diamond in Sierra Leone, and he started to engage in the war. Charles Taylor strongly wanted to gain diamond, so he started to support the rebels of Sierra Leone, which is RUF. And the RUF is an abbreviation of Revolutionary Union Front. Charles Taylor and the rebels of Sierra Leone became the same side. They started to assassinate and assault people who disagreed to them. They were like a group of soldiers who were created to kill the citizens of Sierra Leone. The name of their group was Burnhouse Unit, Cut-Hands Commando, and Bloodshed Squad. Charles Taylor and the rebels of Sierra Leone tried to gain diamond, and the citizens of Sierra Leone tried to resist to them.
Sierra Leone was once a British colony, so the infrastructure left by the British made Sierra Leone more likely to develop than other African countries. However, corrupt politicians have messed Sierra Leone. In 1972, the world's third largest diamond was discovered in Sierra Leone. Because of this event, the government and RUF fought for 12 years to take over the diamonds of Sierra Leone. The RUF was created to prevent the dictatorship of the ruling party, but in fact it was a criminal group. It was an army sent by Charles Taylor to take the diamonds of Sierra Leone away. Also, the RUF kidnapped young boys aged 10 to 12 to brainwash and train the boys to follow them from an early age. They used drugs and alcohol to brainwash the boys.
January 18th in 2002, Charles Taylor, who is a former president of Liberia, claimed that the war ended after the war continued for 12 years. However, the harm that the war gave to Sierra Leone were so enormous. 350,000 people out of 4,500,000 people died, and more than 1 million people became refugees because of this war. Amputations of 4,000 people got cut off, and that resulted in the highest record of disordered people compared to the whole population. There were many children soldiers who were addicted on drugs, and they became a serious social issue. Even rape and forced labor continued after the war. Fortunately, UN peacekeeping force stayed in Sierra Leone, and Sierra Leone currently became politically stable. Lastly, national minerals agencies started to manage diamonds and other natural resources in the Sierra Leone. To us, diamond is such a beautiful and fabulous mineral, but to people who live in Sierra Leone, they think diamond is just filthy and dirty rock because of this word. you for listening.
All right, well done, girls. Thank you for teaching us about a much darker side of the diamond industry. So next up, we're going to learn about the country of Indonesia. So if we could please welcome Jian to the stage.
Hello, I'm 10234 Kim Jian, and today I'm going to introduce the country called Indonesia. So this is a table of contents. I'll be talking about 5 things about Indonesia today. And this is a map of Indonesia. The reason why I chose Indonesia as a topic for my presentation is because I've lived there for about 4 years. And while living there, I've learned so many interesting things about Indonesia. Another reason why I wanted to talk about Indonesia is because not many people know about the country. So by researching this topic, if someone asks me something like where to go for a vacation or a country I want to recommend visiting, I can say Indonesia and talk about how great it is. Before I start, I'm going to talk about the basic information about Indonesia. Indonesia is in Southeast Asia, and it's 14th largest country by area, and 270 million people live there, which makes Indonesia the 4th largest population. To talk more about the area of Indonesia, the distance between Korea to Indonesia and the distance between the distance between the end west of Indonesia to the end east of Indonesia is almost the same. So it takes about 7 hours to go from Korea to Indonesia, and having the similar distance as that will also mean it'll take about 7 hours to go from the end east of Indonesia to the end west of Indonesia. Isn't that interesting? That's how big a country is. And Indonesia has 17,000 islands, including Sumatra, Java, Borneo, Sulawesi, Bali, Lombok, and more. And Indonesia has many volcanoes, and about that, I'm going to talk more about it later. First, I'll be talking about the animals of Indonesia. There are lots of animals that's originally from Indonesia. Animals like Komodo dragon, pygmy tarsier, Sumatra orangutan, and black macaque are the animals that are from Indonesia. But today I'm going to talk about the first 2 special animals. First is about the Komodo dragon. Komodo dragon is Indonesia's most popular animal, and it's also the largest lizard in the world. Komodo dragon lives in Komodo Island in Indonesia, and Komodo dragons are fast, and they are strong, and they have sharp teeth. But the thing that kills their prey is a toxic bacteria in the Komodo's mouth. The toxic bacteria in the Komodo's mouth is responsible for ultimately killing their prey. Next, I'll be talking about the pygmy tarsier. As you can see in this picture, pygmy tarsier is a monkey. And the very interesting fact about them is that they have the largest eyes relative to body size of any mammal. Each eyeball is around 16 millimeters in diameter, and that's as large as a tarsier's entire brain. Can you believe that? One eyeball is as big as an animal's entire brain? That's unbelievable. And pygmy tarsiers originally come from central Sulawesi, Indonesia. Next, I'll be talking about the volcanoes of Indonesia. As I said before, there are lots of volcanoes in Indonesia, and they're really famous for volcanoes. Also, volcanoes in Indonesia are very huge. For example, Volcano Semeru is 3,676 meters high, Volcano Merapi is 2,930 meters high, and Volcano Bromo is 2,329 meters high. You might not think the volcanoes are that big if I just tell you the numbers like this, but if you compare the volcanoes to the ones in Korea, then you'll see how big the volcanoes are in Indonesia. The highest volcano in Korea is Paektusan, and it's 2,930 meters high. The second highest volcano is Hallasan, and it's 1,950 meters high. The third highest volcano in Korea is Ulleungdo, and it's 984 meters high. Now, do you see how big the volcanoes are in Indonesia? Next, I'll be talking about the language of Indonesia. The Indonesian language is called Bahasa Indonesia. And did you know that Bahasa Indonesia is not a mother tongue language for most of Indonesian people? Why is that? It's because Bahasa Indonesia is an artificial language that has been created less than 100 years ago. There are about 300 ethnic groups in Indonesia. And Each ethnic group has their own language. In 1945, the Indonesian government declared the independence of Indonesia. And then the Indonesian government thought that one nation should have one language to communicate with each other, so they came up with Bahasa Indonesia. Among the languages of 300 ethnic groups, Bahasa Melayu was the easiest language to learn, so they made Bahasa Melayu Bahasa Indonesia. And Bahasa Melayu is very similar to Malaysian these days, so that's why Indonesian and Malaysian is very similar. You might know some of their words in Indonesian that you don't even realize. For example, the word orangutan is an Indonesian word as well as a Malaysian word, and it means man of the forest. Orang means people, men in Indonesian, and hutan means the forest in Indonesian. So orangutan means the man of the forest in Indonesian and Malaysian. Also, bamboo is an Indonesian word as well as a Malaysian word. Next is about the traditional clothes. Indonesia has their stylish traditional clothes. The traditional clothing technique is called batik. Batik is a technique of wax dyeing, and you make clothes and other things with fabric with it. Batik is a Japanese word. The word batik means to mark with spots and dots. Batik is a very ancient art that has continued for thousands of years. It is practiced in many countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, China, India, Africa, and more. This is how you make batik. You use a tool called dusting when you make batik. So first what you do is you melt wax in a place where it looks like a pocket in dusting. And after the wax is all melted, you draw a design on top of a fabric. And when it's done, you dye the fabric that you've designed, and then you rinse them out in the boiling water so the wax will fall off. And last, when you dry them, then it's all done. That's how you make batik. Last, I'll be talking about the tourist attractions of Indonesia. There are lots of beautiful islands in Indonesia, and the most famous island is Bali. So people might know Indonesia because of Bali, but there are other islands like Lombok and Gili that are also great for vacation. Gili was where Music Film was filmed, and the restaurants are running, so many people go there too. Since Bali and Gili is an island, there are lots of oceans nearby, so you can snorkel, see fishes, ride on a boat, surf, and do activities like that. There are other places in Indonesia that are also great for a vacation that's not an island. Yogyakarta is also a wonderful place in Indonesia that are great for a vacation. Yogyakarta is famous for temples, and the most famous temples are Borobudur Temple and Prambanan Temple. Borobudur Temple is one of the biggest Buddhist temple in the world, and Prambanan Temple is the largest Hindu temple in Indonesia. These were some of the things about Indonesia. There are a lot more spectacular things about the country, so I hope one day Indonesia gets well known, so people will know how great Indonesia and its culture is. Terima kasih, which means thank you in Indonesian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gian, for all those interesting facts about Indonesia. I want to travel there more than I already did now. Next up, we are going to have Kong and Soo come to the stage for a very special mukbang. So let's welcome her on up.
Hello, my name is Jessica and I'm first grade class 4. It's a great honor to be here for a Global Day presentation. Today I am going to give you brief information of China, India, and Thailand and introduce their signature foods. It will be followed by mukbang. Actually, I wanted to cast World Star BTS, but I couldn't. But BTS is already here with us. B is B. I am here, you are here, and we are here at Global Day. T is taste. Information, tastings, and personal opinions of various countries' signature foods. Last, as it stands. Through the national flags, traditional costumes, and signature foods, we can feel like we are visiting the countries. Well, reminding me, TS, shall we go on a trip to China, India, and Thailand?
Ni hao ma, we are in China. Can you see Chinese national flag and my Chinese traditional costume? As you know, China is close to Korea, both geographically and historically. China currently has the highest population in the world with a total of about 1.4 billion and the fourth largest territory. With abundant manpower and national resources, China has grown rapidly after the 2000s. Now, China has powerful influences in global economy as well as in many ways. Well, let's move to the food 1.4 billion of Chinese love. I'm going to introduce the Chinese popular dishes and try them. First, Beijing duck, one of Chinese gourmet food. Beijing duck is Beijing's world-famous signature food from Yuan dynasty. Wrapping duck's meat and skin with wheat crepes and yajang and garnish with green onion and cucumber slices inside to remove duck's unique scent. Then let me try it this way. Oh, when I first bite it, I tasted the sauce's strong flavor, but soon it meshed well with duck's own flavor and crisp texture of green onion and cucumber. It's fantastic! It's really good. Next, here comes a special vegetable dish. It is called Wi Xiang Che Zhi, the eggplant dish from Sichuan region. It's fried eggplant with green onion, garlic, and ginger and Chinese hot sauce pao jiao zhang or doubanjiang, sugar, soy sauce, and Chinese vinegar lao chan chu are added. Let me try a piece of Wishiang Ches. Mmm! Crispy texture goes well with silky eggplant flesh. The flavor of various sauces and spices make it sweet and sour, and it tastes super good. Actually, there aren't many kinds of eggplant dishes, and quite a lot of people don't enjoy eggplants. I highly recommend Wishang Ches to people who don't like eggplant dishes. I think they're going to like it. Now let's go to India, the country not very far from China. Namaste! Can you see Indian national flag and Indian traditional costume? Following China, India has the second highest population and seventh largest territory in the world. Most of Indians are Hindus, so they don't eat beef. That's why they have many chicken dishes. Today's first Indian signature dish is tandoori chicken. After marinated in yogurt with spices, the chicken is baked in tandoor, Indian traditional oven. Then let me try it. Due to the reddish color of tandoori chicken, I thought it might be hot, but it isn't hot at all. It's tasty like smoked chicken and very different from Korean chicken dishes. It has a unique flavor, but it's not that strong. I think most of Koreans will like this taste. The second dish is good with the third one. It's prawn makhni and naan. Prawn makhni is Indian curry with prawn, tomato, spices, and buttercream inside. Naan is Indian traditional bread. Indians bake flour dough in tandoor to make naan. Now let's try them. Because of buttercream, the makhani is really tasty and soft, and it is good with plain naan. These days, spicy foods are popular, but I want to recommend these foods to my dear friends. These aren't spicy but really tasty. For me, it was very special and memorable. Merry Christmas! Finally, I'm in Thailand. Sawadee Krap! Thailand is a Buddhist country and has a king as a powerful leader. With Vietnam and Philippines, Thailand is loved as a travel destination by many Koreans. Thailand also is favorable to Korean culture. For this reason, there are many Thai kitchens in Korea and lots of Koreans like Thai foods. Today, I prepared two kinds of popular Thai signature dishes. The first one is Pad Thai. Pad Thai is the most famous and popular Thai dish. Even the name contains Thai, it's fried rice noodles and it contains fish sauce, tamarind extract, palm sugar, fried tofu, green bean sprouts, and peanuts. We also can add chicken or seafood. Then let me try it. Because of various sauces and ingredients, it has various tastes and munchy. I usually have noodles with soup, but these fried noodles are likely to change my appetite. Second, here comes Tom Yam Goong, a soup with shrimps, pepper, lemongrass, lime, fish sauce, and tom yum sauce inside. Because of the ingredients, it has sweet, hot, salty, and even sour tastes. I think having various tastes is Thai dishes characteristic. Then I'll try it. Oh, as expected, it has various tastes and it's very special. It will go well with white rice. I think many Koreans who like soup will like this.
How was this special trip abroad been? Were the dishes impressive? If you're planning to go to China, India, or Thailand, I highly recommend you to have their signature foods I introduced. You'll never regret it. I'm really sorry for not being free to travel due to COVID-19, but I hope Itaewon International Schools students always have a global mindset and respect other countries' history and culture because we are going to be global citizens. Please keep in mind that we are proud Daewon International Middle School students and enjoy the rest of the Global Day Festival. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Unsu, for teaching us about all those delicious foods from all over the world. But next up, we're going to have a special presentation for you. So, can we please welcome Janti Ango Janin to the stage, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for my voice. So today I'm here to talk about the dance. That's an interesting topic that you might enjoy. So, what kind of dance does come to your mind whenever you hear the dance? Some people might think about the classic ballet, and others are more fashionable, the modern dance, contemporary dance. If you like to go to musicals a lot, you might have a lot of time seeing the stage dance, the theatrical dance, right? So integrating acting into dancing. The last one, this is very hot. Are you all familiar with street dance? Street woman fighter, Supa, which is called Supa, that premiered, on Mnet. It's a survivor dance program, right? So 8 different female dance crew, they fight for the position of the best Korean female dance group to represent K-pop. So they opened the show with jaw-dropping, performances with various genres of dances, ranging from hip-hop to walking. But are you familiar with this ballroom dance? So what does ballroom mean? So it came after the Latin word, the ballar, which means the dance. So ballroom is a large room for such dances. So if you see the picture, we need a partner. It's not a solo dancing, right? If you see a lot of classic movies, you can actually see beautiful women, very fancy, guys. They wear very formal dress and suits. And also the right one is, different kind of ballroom. So it's a set of partner dance. So all over the world, people enjoy it socially and also competitively. So there are 2 typical kinds of dances. The first one is smooth style. It's a standard. So usually females, they wear a beautiful dress, and there are leaders who are the males and the followers the females, and they dance together. So they usually focus on grace and elegance and fluidity of the movements. So let me just briefly show you. If I dance part, the followers should start with the right foot. So step, slide, step. So they turn counterclockwise. So slide, step, slide, step, slide, step. So just like this, they rotate. It's a standard. And counterclockwise, it includes a lot of different dances, waltz, tango, and Viennese waltz. The second one, you can definitely see the difference, the costume, right? So women wear more short dress beyond their, it's a female Latin style. It's a more lively and fast dance. Okay, so usually they pull off their personal flair. It's not a clockwise dance, they just dance on the spot. Okay, so it includes the jari, rumba, cha-cha, salsa, mambo. So I'm not talking about this ballroom dance today, because usually the dances I perform on Ballroom Language Day is a line dance. So what is line dance? So line dance is exactly what the word implies. People dance in line to music. Okay, so if you see the picture, they all do the same, movement. So it's a group of dance, and all keep, performing solo. And it's a choreographed dance with a repeated series of steps. So people face all the same direction. Front, we call it a wall. So front wall, the right wall, backward, and backward. So even if you forget some movement, you can just cheat other dancers. So what are the attractions of learning line dances? So the first one is very easy to learn because there are so many different levels. So, and even the partner, you can just dance alone. So for the beginner, they can only focus on the foot and leg movement. For more advanced dancers, they use arm and shoulder, some kind of they show up some flares. So it's actually the choreographers of line dances. They use a lot of different styles of dances and they adapt it to line dance. So yeah, that's right. I am in the middle now. So there is a comparative line dance. So I actually joined it in 2019 before COVID situation. So it's a United Council in the Western Dance, United Country Western Dance Council. 2019, it was held in Yonsei University. So I participated. There are 4 class divisions. The very beginner is a newcomer, and next novice, and actually I joined the intermediate level. And the advanced level is only a must where the professional dancers can participate. So to participate in intermediate level, I actually should master 6 different genres of dance. So the first one is rise and fall, it's words. Okay? So it's a three-part time. So can you identify? I'm wearing a black and yellow dress. It's me. And the next one is a smooth genre. It's the same costume that I'm wearing. It's a solo nightclub dance and swing dance. It's usually Western swing. And third genre is a pulse, lilt. It's a lot of energy. It's more hopping and jumping. It's more live and fast. It includes the jive or East Coast swing. And next one is Cuban genre. So Cuba, where's Cuba located? It's in the Caribbean Sea, right? So the music and dance are the heart and soul of this island. So it's an energetic mix of Spanish soulful melodies and lyrical traditions and dynamic African beats and percussions. So it actually includes a lot of hip movement. So it has salsa and cha-cha and mambo. The next one is street dance. The street, So it includes a lot of hip hop, walking, punky, and street. A different style. It's an informal style. And the last one is stage dance. So it's a character dance you can easily see on the music. So today I'm going to show you 3 different genres of dances that I just briefly introduced. The first one is smooth genre. I'm wearing this one, but I cannot actually change the clothes. So wearing the same clothes, but I'm going to 2 different more styles of dances. The first one is smooth. The second one is stage dance. And the last one is Cuban dance, cha-cha. So I want to share the quote by Paul Coelho. When you dance, you can enjoy the luxury of being you. So enjoy the dance.
Always a voice that tells us never. Always a fear that we won't win. But there's a dream we've had forever. Here's where our stories just begin. Feet on the ground, head to the sky. Let intuition be your guide. Anything goes, push the impossible aside. Ready to run, willing to fight. Cling to the dream you have inside. It's do or die, and the impossible is possible tonight. Just need you. Met you when I was a little nappy head boy, and I never put down my alto saxophone. Buck jumping down on a boulevard. I couldn't wait to blow my own horn. It ain't wrong for you to play along, playing this song till you die. Come on, come on. In this world with a lot of problems, all we need is a little love. Thank you, oh you make me thank you for your love. We done a lot of living, we're working overtime. Don't need another million, you got that gold mine. I love the way you're living, cause you're so genuine. You got that something special, didn't you know? I just need you, you. Come on now.
With it
muévete con decisión, patugas la sensación, siente en tu cuerpo este ritmo. Bailalo sin detener, deja tu sangre correr, tu cuerpo pide estar vivo. Batuca, te arrastra y te acelera, y sientes que te quema, te mueve y te menea, mi batuca, que se te pega, batuca caliente, para que sepas que rico se siente. Esa mi batuca sabrosa, verás que buena se pone la cosa.
As internet media develops, fake news that attract people's attention are increases. Also, fake news is becoming a serious social problem in the world. Fake news is false or misleading information presented as news. It often has the aim of damaging the reputation of a person, entity, or making money through advertising revenue. People deliberately create provocative and interesting false content to attract people's attention for financial or political gain. Most people can't distinguish the difference between fake news and the factual news, and they all accept that as true. Fake news leads to people to accept false facts and false thoughts, and it disguised as real news, and it can make unsettled society. The first example of fake news has led to an actual gun accident. In December 4th, 2016, a man entered a pizza store in Washington, D.C. and began shooting. The man said, "I stormed in with firearms to rescue the children." This accident is called as Pizzagate. Pizzagate refers to a case in which rumors about presidential candidate Hillary Clinton enjoyed Philadelphia being spread. The rumors spread to communities such as Twitter. Pizzagate is an example of fake news causing real crimes and informs the risk of fake news. The second example of fake news is about self-employed person who was damaged by fake news about COVID-19 in Goyangsi, Gyeonggi-do. Now, reporter has visited a self-employed person. Reporter Yun.
This is reporter Yun. I'm here to meet a self-employed person who was damaged by false information posted on Facebook page. This page said that a self-employed person hid the occurrence of a COVID-19 infection at her store. The false information is causing great mental and financial damage to the self-employed person. Can you tell what happened in detail?
I'm very sad right now. Of course,
The article has already been deleted from Facebook due to my protest, but I still can't believe that the man, who was my regular customer, spread this false news even though he knew the situation of our store. I just disinfected my store for our customers. I'm very shocked that he made up such a ridiculous thing that I disinfect my store because there's an infected person. If there is an infected person, our store will suffer, so there are no reason that I hide about it.
In particular, I think you'll be more disappointed because it's false information posted by a customer who used to come to the store often. Since it's false news of a serious problem, COVID-19, the damage will be very serious. Can you tell how much damage have caused to the store?
All of my family are crying right now. It's really annoying for us that he always came to our store with a big smile and did this. Due to this situation, many people came to our store to curse, and even the customers who were originally coming cannot be seen. So we currently don't have any income from the store.
I'm sorry to hear that the fake news gave a big damage to you. This will be a great comfort for other victims. This was reporter Yun. Thank you.
Thank you to reporter Yun. As you guys can be seen from this interview, the impact of fake news is very fatal. Fake news may stir lightly for the reasons such as perpetrators, prank, and commercial break. But fake news should never be produced because once it's spread on the internet, people will find rapidly and victims will get unforgettable wins in their lifetime.
News is media that tells citizens only the truth. However, with the emergence of false news, the essential and pure parts of the news are damaged. We should no longer let people suffer and get blamed by those false news. Fake news should be prevented so that citizens can only accept accurate information.
Now, as a solution, there are many ways to respond to fake news. First is the state to regulate. It is possible to reduce the flooding of fake news through punishing people by creating laws.
Second is autonomous regulatory efforts of platform companies, which are online spaces where fake news is mainly distributed, such as SNS or messengers. By blocking those fake false contents, much of the victims can be prevented.
Third, it is important that ordinary citizens recognize when we face low-quality information and further develop the ability to understand and accept the content throughout the information. This ability is part of the media literacy. Learning in public information will be much more efficient in society.
If school education can cultivate media literacy, the entire nation can enjoy the benefits of education and use information more properly. Therefore, it is most desirable to receive appropriate education suitable for school age and teaching level throughout education.
That's all for today's news. Please always be alert and careful not to become victims of fake news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you girls for teaching us about a issue that is unfortunately going to become more and more prevalent in our society. Next up, we are going to have Kim Min-seo, Isayu, Kim Iju, and Chae Jung-won come up to tell to us about foreigners living abroad.
Hello, today we are going to be presenting our Global Day presentation, which is about an interview around the globe. We interviewed foreign friends living in different countries and asked them about their culture and country. We also asked them about Korea and the view that foreigners have on Korea. To give a short introduction about our interview participants, we have Shan Yu from China, Natalie from New Zealand, Yu Hyun from Japan, Camilla from Mexico, and finally Ida from the USA. To start off the interview, we asked for a brief explanation about each country. What are the famous landmarks in your country, traditions in your country, traditional foods, festivals, traditional clothing, and agriculture? We also asked how Korea was recognized in different countries. What do you think of when you hear about Korea? What do you like about Korea? First of all, we have Nelly from New Zealand, who replied with a short introduction of New Zealand's animals and landscapes. She told us that New Zealand has breathtaking landscapes and incredible animals. New Zealand has many amusing and interesting birds, and she particularly liked kiwi birds. Because New Zealand is surrounded by the ocean, there are many different kinds of fish and sea mammals. Natalie of view of Korea is Korea's foods and streets are spectacular. She especially liked Itaewon's night view because it was so colorful and bright, all the lights, and she loved that people from around the world got together and celebrated their differences. Xianyu from China told us about Chinese New Year and famous food. Chinese New Year takes place on the 1st of February, and it is a celebration that celebrates the New Year on the lunar calendar. People celebrate their beliefs and sometimes hang dragons and colorful lights on their doors and ceilings for good luck and fortune. Families often gather for dinner and have a feast with many delicious food. Her favorite food is tangmian, a kind of food with sesame paste on the inside. Xianyu told us that China and Korea have a lot of similarities geographically and historically. Even with all the similarities, the two countries have faced struggles governmentally and politically. She still thinks that the two countries should get more active with fixing their relationship because Korea and China are close neighbors. Camila from Mexico told us that Mexico shows big originality and diversity with its sparkling history and traditions. It is often recognized as a country of tacos and mariachis, but that isn't all there is to Mexico. She introduces to Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead, one of the biggest celebrations of the country, celebrated on November the 2nd. On this day, Mexican families celebrate and greet their ancestors with decorated altars for the traditional foods such as pan de muertos, yellowish flowers called cempasúchil, and colorful paper artwork called papel picado. She believes that Korea is very modern and technological because Korea is very fast in developing living necessities such as architecture, transportation, economy, and more. She loves Korean food, and her favorite foods are tempting and provoking. She says it's very different from Mexican cuisine because many Mexican foods are spicy and salty. Korean foods have a deep flavor profile and taste pleasant. Ida from the US introduced USA's famous landmarks and famous foods. Most people will know the USA for being the home to cheeseburgers and fries. Although the USA isn't as culturally diverse as many other countries, it still has very famous landmarks. Ida's personal favorites were the Grand Canyon, Devil's Tower, and the Gateway Arch. Ida thinks that Korea is very well known to everyone and everywhere in the world. She thinks that Americans acknowledge this fact as well. Since there are many Korean immigrants, Korean visitors, and Korean Americans in the US, there are a lot of Korean restaurants, shops, and many cultural/traditional places. The entertainment, which are K-dramas and K-pop, is also enjoyed by many Americans in the US. Ida personally enjoys K-dramas and thinks that the storylines are amusing and very thrilling. Next, we have a video from Yuhyun, a Japanese friend introducing her country and the views that Japan has about Korea.
インタビューを開始します。
よろしくお願いします。
あなたの名前は何ですか？
私の名前はファン・ユーヒョンです。ユンちゃんと呼んでいただけると嬉しいです。
あなたの国籍は何ですか？
私の国籍は一応韓国なんですけど、日本に来て10年くらい経っています。
簡単な国の紹介をお願いします。
日本で有名なものですと、七夕祭りや花火とかが有名ですね。あと空気もすごく綺麗ですし、アニメ産業といいますかね、アニメとかも結構有名ですね。
個人的に思う韓国といえば思い浮かぶのは何ですか？
やっぱり韓国ですと K-POP とかですかね。やっぱりもう最近流行ってますから。
それでは10代が考える韓国といえば何ですか？
韓国ですとやっぱりおしゃれってイメージがありますかね。なんかみんな最近なんか韓国スタイルって感じで服を着ていたりとか、韓国のブランドから服を購入するとかってこともたくさんありますし、まあおしゃれってイメージと K-POP ってイメージが一番大きいですかね。あとみんななんか韓国の方がみんな美人だねみたいな感じで言ってて、なんか美人、おしゃれみたいなそういうイメージが結構多いと思います。
インタビューに参加してくださってありがとうございます。
こちらこそありがとうございます。
aka Piju, showing us about the performance of the blind date with the Mexican man and woman. They'll be showing us Mexican culture via a play. I'm nervous for this date. I think this is my first in years. I heard he's Mexican. By the way, when is he coming? He's so late. What happens if he doesn't come? Buenos días, señorita. I am Alberto Ramirez El Segundo, and I was wondering if you had an extra heart, because mine was just stolen. Perdóname for being so late. I was up last night practicing my dancing lines. So it's really nice to finally meet you. I heard you are from Mexico, am I correct? See, yes, I am from Mexico, the country of tacos and mariachis, and your future husband. Anyways, how are you, my precious? I assume you're starving from the waiting. We should order. Perdóname. Yes, what would you like to drink for two little lovebirds? I'll just get some water. Agua? Claro, bebé. And I would like a margarita. Of course, right away. So, what was your favorite food from back when you were in Mexico? I can't choose my favorite food, comida favorita, because all of the food there is deliciosa. But if I had to choose one, it would be el mole. It's salsa that comes from the pre-Hispanic times and were offered to the gods in ceremonies and rituals to honor them. It's made out of spices, chiles, frutas, and many more, but all of them are equally as delicious. I gotta try this one day. It sounds delicioso. So, what was your famous monuments of Mexico? I'll tell you about Los Pirámides, the pyramids. There are many pyramids inside of Mexico. For example, el Pirámide del Sol, el Templo de Cuculcán, el Pirámide de Mago, and many more. But my personal favorite is el Pirámide del Sol, also known as Teotihuacan. Because for me, it's el más hermoso, the most beautiful. And it's truly a piece of art, like you, my love. Oh, this sounds lovely. I have to tell you something this instant. Baby, you are the garden to my taco, the icing to my cake, and the book to my library. I know this is the first time we've met, but the minute my eyes took a look at yours, it felt like I was flying to heaven. And when you smile, it feels like my heart is bursting. So, will you marry me? Yes, of course! Te amo, bebé! Yes, I love it too! To wrap up our PPT, our conclusion is that even though we all live on the same planet and we are all part of one global community, we learned that people have different cultures, traditions, foods, and even though some countries are geographically close, no two countries are exactly the same and have each of their different characteristics of life. For example, no two people in the world can look the same way or dress the same. We hope our presentation makes you feel open-minded about different countries. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Okay, and we have come to our final presentation for today. So we are going to hear about Brexit for our last last presentation from Kim Dayan, Lee Ju-kyung, and Hong Hee-young.
Brexit is an abbreviation of two English words, Britain and exit, that refers to the withdrawal process of the United Kingdom from the European Union. There are many mixed opinions about the Brexit.
According to the professor of politics at Strathclyde University, Casabalan, how young and old vote over Brexit now? 70% of the elders agreed to Brexit. On the other hand, only 30% of youngs agreed with Brexit. Through this result, we were interested in why these contrasting opinions appear.
And now I'm going to explain about the older opinion. The most of the elder people are in favor of the Brexit. The reason why they agreed to Brexit is because, in my opinion, they were called the Great British Empire, where the country that sets never sets. So in past, the British was in really high position, but in EU they have to lower themselves and they have to cooperate with many other countries around the world. So the older people who have experienced the Great British Empire would consider that EU is preventing the development of the UK. Then, let's focus on the young side. As shown above, most young people want to remain in the European Union. The reason is that, by Brexit, European global companies in the United Kingdom would exit the United Kingdom and move into other neighboring countries. So the number of jobs would disappear and young people would probably choose to stay.
Through this, we can know still today there are mixed opinions about the Brexit. So we'll go down through the history of the Brexit. 2013 in the UK, their goal was the winner of the presidential election. So the politicians said if they choose him as the premier, he will propel the referendum whether they would stay or leave the Brexit, which was populism refers to political activities or ideas that try to promote the interests and opinions of ordinary people. In the end, the result was surprising that more than 50% of people said to do Brexit, and starting from the Brexit was ongoing until 2021.
Moreover, we are going to think about the advantage and disadvantage resulting by the Brexit. To begin with, there are two advantages. Above all, people can receive a higher pension and jobs will be guaranteed due to Brexit. Regardless of whether refugees are verified or not, if many people enter one country, job shortage would occur in such cases.
In addition, the United Kingdom can develop itself. The United Kingdom contributed a lot financially to the European Union due to its capital strength. However, this money can now be used for the development of one's own country, not the European Union.
And now I will explain the disadvantage resulted by the Brexit. That is firstly the economical deflate. As you know, the UK is one of the landmarks in Europe, so many Europe countries and many Europe people are tended to work in the UK. And the people who work in the UK would spend a lot of money for for the products and the foods in the UK, and this kind of behavior can lead to the more fluent and active economy. However, by the Brexit, the many Europe companies and many Europe people have inclinations to get out of the UK. And this could also lead to the economical debate.
The next one is the demerit in the perspective of education. In the European Union, aerospace benefits exist which encourage mobility of students by lowering tuition. However, by the Brexit, the students in the United Kingdom have to pay more expensive tuition compared to other European Union students. So, is there any solution?
The first method to solve this problem is to promote government enterprises, such as making roads, subways, factories, and etc. that leads to economic growth.
And second solution that I thought is lowering the university tuition. To be specific, the government could invest the money which could be like used in the EU to the students who are suffering from the high university tuition. Through this, it could lead to the more better educational circumstances.
These present problems have affected not only Europe but also Korea. The effects can be divided into two categories: society and economy.
First of all, the relationship between Korea and United Kingdom has changed. The opportunity to form mutual interchange increased God to enter into an amicable relationship. Also, the United Kingdom realized the situation after Brexit is very similar to the conditions of Korea in the 2000s. The United Kingdom is taking a similar path with Korea, also showing respect.
And now on, I will explain the changes in the economy. The UK retrieved the capital of the UK that was in Korea. Since there are a lot of the financial shortage that occurred because of the Brexit, thus the only way for UK to endure the risk is by retrieving their monetary investigation from other countries.
As a result, the United Kingdom recovered the capital of the UK from Korea. Additionally, Brexit negatively affected Korea's industry that was associated with export. Korea needs to conclude a separate free trade agreement. On the other hand, the portion of exports to the United Kingdom and Korea is not big in Korea's total exports. Eventually, there will be more tariffs on Korea, which will make an economic loss.
By globalization, the world is being connected, becoming a complementary relationship.
In other words, it could disadvantage both UK and the European Union.
So I firmly believe that we have to take this problem very seriously and we have to think about the solution of it. This is the end of our presentation. And thank you for listening.
All right, and that concludes our student presentations for today. All of our presentations today were fantastic, and you should all be very proud of all the hard work that you put into it today. So let's do one last round of applause for all the groups that presented today. Now, before our guest speaker, we are going to have a 10-minute break, so we will come back at 3:10 to continue
Kia ora, 하이르마이, 안녕하세요. 주한 뉴질랜드 대사관에 오신 것을 환영합니다. Welcome to the New Zealand Embassy in Seoul. We're about to show you, take a quick look inside, but first I'd like to introduce you to our taonga, our special treasure here, Tamatuki no Kuroa, which was carved by W. Kokiri and the Arts Trust Te Awamutu. This is a special Maori carving, and these carvings show ancestors of Maori tribes in New Zealand. Let's take a look inside. Here in the entrance to the embassy, we have a piece of art by New Zealand artist Jeff Thompson entitled Map of New Zealand. It shows that New Zealand, at the bottom of the southern hemisphere, is made up of three main islands: North Island, South Island, and Stewart Island. Those islands are about to go into summer now because the seasons are opposite to here in Korea. We also have photographs showing famous places in New Zealand. The Auckland Art Gallery, Toi Tamaki, which has a Korean artist displayed there in the photograph. Queenstown bungee jumping. New Zealand was the first place in the world to offer commercial bungee jumping, and you see it here on the fantastic Queenstown Lake. Then we have the traditional New Zealand Māori hongi, or greeting, with our cultural ambassador Hajiwan, and a Māori performer. And the wonderful Auckland City skyline there at sunset. And then greeting you as you come into our embassy are the magnificent New Zealand Southern Alps and Aoki Mount Cook, our highest point. 반갑습니다. It's great to meet you here at the embassy. 감사합니다.
Kia ora koto. Annyeonghaseyo. New Zealand's diplomatic relations with the Republic of Korea were established in 1962, with the New Zealand Embassy opening in Seoul in 1971. However, our political, economic, and security links with Korea date back to the Korean War, during which 6,000 New Zealanders served and 45 lost their lives in Korea. During this period, the New Zealanders also shared a very famous song of our indigenous people, the Māori, called Po Kari Kari Ana, with the Korean people. Its Korean version is very well known here as Yonga. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the start of the Korean War, and we still remember today the sacrifice of those soldiers. Since then, our two countries have built a strong relationship in many different areas, including business, education, defense, and tourism. In our embassy, we have nearly 30 staff members working, including staff seconded from New Zealand and employed here. The New Zealand government agencies currently housed in the embassy are the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, the New Zealand Defence Force, Education New Zealand, and Tourism New Zealand has a separate location very near the embassy in the Guanamoon area. If you'd like to find out more about New Zealand, please contact the New Zealand team in Korea. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Welcome to the country of open spaces. Where nature bursts and flows. Where the elements come alive. Where there is room to breathe. And places to find. Welcome to the country of open hearts. Where care for the land and people is genuine. Where life is for living. Where time spent together is never time wasted. Where lasting partnerships are formed. Where strangers are treated as friends. And memories are treasured forever. Welcome to the country of open minds. Where learning is embraced. And opinions valued. Where freshness is championed. And quality prized. For the world to enjoy. Where nature inspires incredible thinking. Where ingenuity drives innovation. And productivity. Where big ideas are born every day. And new technologies are perfected. Where the impossible becomes real. And where every sunrise inspires the extraordinary. Welcome to the country of open spaces, open hearts, and open minds. Together, we can do amazing things.
About changing the flag. And in the end, around 60% of New Zealanders wanted to keep this design. So this is still the New Zealand flag. Korea and New Zealand also have very strong trade relations. Korea is one of New Zealand's top 10 markets for food and beverage. And despite COVID, I'm very proud to say that trade is continuing very strongly. And you can find many Zealand products in Korea, such as dairy products, milk, fruits, and meat. Lamb is a very popular New Zealand product. One reason that trade is doing so well is because we have a bilateral free trade agreement. And I remember when I was learning Korean that the word for free trade agreement is 자유무역협정. There you go. And Korean products are, of course, world famous, including Samsung and Hyundai. And compared to iPhone, Samsung is much better. So, but New Zealand also has a very good education system. All of New Zealand's universities are in the world's top 3%. So I would strongly encourage you to consider studying in New Zealand. But as you can see from this map, New Zealand is geographically distant and far away from many other countries. But the good thing is, in this day and age, we have virtual ways to connect our countries, so that shouldn't stop anybody from learning more about New Zealand. 11 hours, that's how long the flight takes. And here you can see the size comparison between New Zealand and Korea. From my perspective, Korea always feels much larger because the population here is more than 50 million. New Zealand's population is only 5 million. This is a photo of Auckland in New Zealand, in the North Island, or Puksong. The North Island is very famous for having volcanoes and national parks, and also some big cities. 1/3 of New Zealand lives in Auckland, so it's a big city by New Zealand standards. But in the South Island, we have a lot of famous mountains and lakes. It's a very, very good place for hiking. If your parents enjoy going for Tingsan, they will really, really love the South Island of New Zealand. Now, this is very interesting. Did you know that the word kiwi can be used in 3 different contexts? The fruit, kiwi fruit, the bird, and also the sarang. So it can get a little bit confusing, but you're welcome to use kiwi in any of those three contexts. And that's a photo of a real kiwi bird. How many of you have seen Panjia Channel? Yeah, a few of you. It's a very famous movie that was made in New Zealand, and it's got beautiful scenery. And over the years, actually, because of primarily this movie, New Zealand has become very good at filmmaking as well. But we are also a very big sporting country. Rugby, many of you may have seen the haka on the bottom left. But we're also big on netball. We're particularly strong on women's netball in New Zealand. And cricket is another very popular sport, which is the bottom right. I mentioned before that Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand, or Wānui. So their culture remains a very important part of our national identity. Kia ora is the greeting that we use, and it is a Maori greeting. But there are also many other Maori words that we use to express ourselves. There's Maori dance, and what we call the hongi, which is the touching of the noses, is a traditional Maori greeting.
We have some photos of excellent New Zealand food. I want to mention too that the Maori have a traditional method for cooking that involves burying the food under the ground. And if you visit New Zealand, I highly recommend that you try it. It's very, very delicious. Here are some more images of New Zealand. I have noticed that Koreans love golf, and New Zealand happens to be a very, very good place to play golf. We have many great golf courses, but there's also other activities like bungee jumping, which is the photo on the bottom right. Too scary for me, but some of you that are a bit more brave may wish to try it out one day. I want to spend a bit of time on this slide. I'm very proud of the achievements of my country on social change. New Zealand was the first country to grant women the right to vote in 1893. And on the New Zealand $10 note, the photo is Kate Shepherd, who is New Zealand's most famous, I think, feminist. But New Zealand has also had several women prime ministers. Here are two examples, including our current Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, on the right, who has become quite famous, and also one of our previous Prime Ministers, Helen Clark, on the left. But I want to show you that New Zealand isn't only about the great outdoors or outdoors activities. We're also a very high-tech country. Sure, New Zealand has a lot of farms, but we're also good at innovation, technology, and I think coming up with new ideas, just like Korea. So let me show you this video.
New Zealand has so many gifts to the world. If you talk to anybody who's been there, it's a magical place.
I just love flying in and seeing how green the place is. It just takes me all the way back to my childhood.
We're not just a country of beautiful mountains, we're so much more than that. Historically, we've just done things that other countries haven't done before.
New Zealand is a great place to make things, to initiate ideas.
And to take those ideas and share them with the world drives a huge part of the New Zealand culture.
We have ingenuity that allows us to be creative and bring it to the world with limited resources, and we do that here in New Zealand all the time.
We're launching rockets in New Zealand. How cool is that?
Right now in the world, there's two companies delivering satellites to orbit, Elon Musk and SpaceX, and there's Rocket Lab.
New Zealand is right in there. The capability they've created is paradigm breaking.
And it's all happening out of Mahia, New Zealand.
New Zealand brings together both technology and creativity, and that's why we're so good at innovating.
You know, a lot of people, when you say creative, they think arts, but you can create in engineering. You create things where there was nothing, and that's an incredible thrill.
And at Google, we love Kiwis because Kiwis come up with ways to solve problems in ways that people from other places wouldn't necessarily even attempt.
Best in the world at producing eccentric inventors. The whole America's Cup thing, you know. There's a guy up in Warkworth that had the idea of turning the center boards into hydrofoils, and look at them now.
We think outside the box and then just get on with it.
And if we don't know how to do it, we figure it out.
You're looking for people who are just going to make things happen. New Zealand research on information retrieval was one of the core pieces that made Google successful.
And New Zealanders solve huge global healthcare problems.
We have some of the best doctors in the world. I should know.
We do extraordinary things on the world stage around healthcare. We're arguably the cleverest country on the planet.
We have very talented people who succeed in many technologies, whether it's marine, screen, software, we innovate.
Technology is soaring there. Look at the movies they make.
Warner Brothers invested in New Zealand because New Zealand's reputation is second to none. We're the best content on the planet.
They do the best visual effects ever.
The world has got a lot to learn from New Zealand in terms of the way that we invent technologies and look after each other as well. And that's what makes us different, I think.
We have a collective responsibility to our land and to our future generations, which in Māori we call kaitiakitanga.
We're on a mission to make better things in a better way and tread more lightly in the way that we make products, to be thoughtful about the environment.
And, you know, when you think about the power that a small country can have in influencing the rest of the world, you know, I think New Zealand does sit there.
We dare to dream. Everybody has belief that they can change the world, because we have, and we will continue to do so.
This slide shows some of the subtle differences between Korea and New Zealand education systems. For example, you have 3 years in high school, but in New Zealand, we only spend 5 years. We spend 5 years in high school. And then the length of university depends on the type of degree that you pursue. I think a law degree in New Zealand takes 4 years, whereas some of the other degrees take about 3 years to complete. Here's some photos of school life in New Zealand. And here are the key universities in New Zealand. So I went to Victoria University, which is the green one. And as I mentioned before, they are all in the top 3% in terms of world ranking. Let me quickly show you one last video. Oh, that's all the rankings. I should have done this before. University of Auckland, University of Technology, University of Waikato, Massey University, Lincoln University, University of Canterbury, Victoria University of Wellington. So you have a lot of options in New Zealand. And Otago. I want to show you another quick video. I promise it'll be very fast, about how studying in New Zealand can help you achieve your dreams.
I left home when I was 15 to study in New Zealand. When I graduated from AUT, I loved Auckland so much that I bought a place there and spent most of my early stage of my advertising career in Auckland. I am the Chief Product Accelerator for L'Oreal USA. My role is to advise the organization what sort of new products we should be focusing or what sort of new services we would need to create in order to be first in beauty. And I'm based in New York City. I love the education structure in New Zealand because it really encourages a lot of critical thinking. And I think those are great values to have if you want to become a successful leader one day. The lecturers are very, very open-minded and also sensitive towards a lot of international students. So I feel that the climate, the ecosystem actually helped to set me up for success. What I really love about my role is the ability to travel around the world. So next month, I'm actually going to Hong Kong and Korea. It's important for someone to be very, very perceptive and also intuitive with whatever they are seeing in front of them. If I'm in New York, I would look at what people are wearing all the time. You need to have the curiosity to ask questions, and that's something that New Zealand actually teaches you to have. It allows you to be yourself. It allows you to get the best in education because the standard there is so high. Everywhere you go in the world, when you mention to someone that, oh, I spend most of my university life in New Zealand, you are actually getting a lot of respect because of the high standard that we have in New Zealand. And I think that's something that is really, really unique about New Zealand in that sense that no other country can actually replicate. So to me, it is a great place for you to have a really interesting balance in terms of education and also personal development.
original name might have been Dutch. So I think there is a Zealand somewhere else. But going back to my slide about how innovative we are always New Zealand because we always come up with new ideas. Right? But that's a very good question. So I'm going to say that it's because we're always fresh. We're never old. Like many of you, we're new and young and energetic. I hope that answers your question.
Are there any tourism attractions in New Zealand you would like to recommend to us?
Ooh, that's a very good question. We have so many tourist attractions. The better known ones are all outdoors. There's a place I think I want to highlight, which is a place called Rotorua. There's another Maori name, Rotorua. It's in the North Island of New Zealand. And the reason that it's an interesting tourist destination is because you can see not just nature, but you can look at nature and the history of nature because they have what they call hot pools and geysers. And it's a very distinctive smell. But if you go there, you can learn so much about the history of New Zealand's land and the area and how geographically the country came about and formed. Another example is lake. We have a big lake in New Zealand, I think. Horseshoe, is that a word for lake? The lake is actually, a long time ago, it was a big volcano. Many, many thousands of years ago. But then the volcano erupted. And then after that, it became a lake. So even the history of the geography of New Zealand is so very, very fascinating. Right? But if that's not interesting, there's also, as I mentioned, you can go bungee jumping, skydiving, you can play golf, you can go for walks. There's also something called zorbing. I don't know if you've heard of zorbing. It's a plastic ball, and you're inside the plastic ball, and you can roll around like a hamster. Or anyways, you have to Google it. I think it's called zorbing, but your teachers, I'm sure, can help you find out about that. Yeah, so there will never be a shortage of things to do in New Zealand.
Is there any advantage being Kiwi in Korea?
I think there are definitely advantages to being a tāmua kuka. Right? We have so many diverse cultures, and it means that we grow up surrounded by them, and you learn about them, and you become accustomed to all the different cultures in the world. When I grew up, I had so many different friends from Korea, but also India, a lot of friends from Southeast Asia. And I think some of my friends who were Korean really sparked that early interest that I personally had in coming to Korea and learning Hangul. So there are definitely advantages, and even from a critical thinking perspective, we like to think that we have diversity of thought. We don't believe that there is necessarily only one way to solve certain problems. There may be multiple ways, right? And it's up to us to have discussions and debate and to meet with people who have different ideas and views to us to find out what may be the best solution to certain problems. So, there are definitely advantages, and I think it's fair to say that not many countries have diplomats who are so diverse. So if any of you are thinking about becoming diplomats, you do have the option of not just being Korean diplomats, but if you immigrate to New Zealand, you could also potentially become a New Zealand diplomat. So that's always an option, and I would highly recommend it because it's a great job.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank you for giving a great and interesting speech. And my question is this. Well, I want to be a diplomat in the future, and he teach us about the advantages about being a diplomat, such as like meeting many people, such as like President Moon or something. So I want to ask you that what is the most important factor to be a diplomat?
That's a very good question. Many people, well, some diplomats would tell you that study very hard to become a diplomat. And I think there's probably some degree of truth in that, but I think that finding your own passion is more important. Being passionate about something. We live in a world at the moment where, for example, climate change, Kihu is an issue that the whole world is concerned about. And everywhere you look, the world is beginning to realize the need to act on climate change. But in addition to climate change, there's recycling, sustainability, environmental protection. There are so many different issues out there that young people can take a real deep interest in and passion in. I don't know if you've heard about the Swedish girl called Greta Thunberg, who's very famous internationally on climate change, right? I believe that Korea also has many Greta Thunbergs in Korea, right? So it's important to find your passion and to want to make a difference in the world, right? In addition to studying hard, because I'm sure that you all study hard anyway, so you know, the important thing is to enjoy what you're doing and find something that you're passionate about and you absolutely love and you want to make a difference. And I think on that basis you'll be prepared, you'll be well equipped, not just to become a diplomat, but to achieve anything that you want to.
All right, guys, we have time for one more question.
Are there any big issues in New Zealand related to racism? Since, like you told us, that New Zealand is a diverse country.
That's a very good question as well. I would be lying to you if I said that there was no racism in New Zealand. I think anywhere in the world, you will find racism and prejudice and that kind of thing. But the key thing is to fight against that kind of prejudice, right? Growing up in a multicultural country, I think, has its own challenges, right? But you also learn to stand up for what is right, for diversity, right? Because it is a strength, and I don't think it's negotiable. So, yeah, there is racism in New Zealand, as in every other country, right? But the important thing is to not do nothing, is to act, right? Is to fight for what you believe and fight for what is right.
All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up our discussion for today. Let's give one more nice warm round of applause.
If you have any other questions, feel free to send them to your teacher and they can send them to me. I'm happy to continue answering through written form. Thank you.
자, 여러분 오늘의 글로벌 데이 행사는 종료됐는데 여러분이 하실 일이 있죠. 이제 오늘 중에 여러분 그 리로스쿨에 들어가서 설문을 합니다. 오늘 총 23개의 팀이 발표를 했는데 그 중에서 대상을 받을 것 같은 팀을 한 팀 골라서 팀을 맞춘 학생들에게는 모두에게 소정의 상품을 저희가 드릴 예정이니까 꼭 잊지 말고 하시고, 물론 지금 다 영어로 진행되는 렉처가 많아서 좀 다소 지겹기도 하겠지만 또 어떤 학생들은 굉장히 도움이 많이 되는 준비를 많이 해서 좋은 경험이었던 것 같습니다. 여러분 내년에는 또 다른 더 다채로운 글로벌 데이를 저희가 준비하도록 약속드리고 오늘 너무너무 수고 많았고요. 강당에 계신 학생들, 또 그 교실에, 또 지금 유튜브로 보고 있는 사랑하는 학생들, 그리고 여러분 지금 이걸 준비해 주신 국제부 선생님들께 큰 박수 먼저 드리겠습니다. 교실은 자기 선생님들께서 준비를 해주시면 될 것 같고요. 지금 강당에 계신 학생들은 자기 의자를 정리해서 올려놓고 자기 물건 다 챙겨서 가는 겁니다. 수고하셨습니다.
my journey, you have carried me through faithfully. You have been my friend. Now I'm here, give you thanks for who you are to me. Here I come with all my heart, praise your name. This is the life I have found in you. Be glorified in me. I'm yours. You are everything to me. This is the song you have placed in me. I'll shout out to your name. For you, I will give you all I have. My journey, you have carried me through faithfully. You have been my friend. Now I'm here, give you thanks for who you are to me. Here I come with all my heart, praise your name. This is the life I have found in you. Be glorified in me. I'm yours. You are everything to me. This is the song you have placed in me. I'll shout out to your name. For you, I will give you all I have. This is the life I found in you. Be glorified in me. I'm yours. You are everything to me. This is a song you have placed in me. I'll shout out to your name. For you, I will give you all I have. You are everything to me. I will give you all I have. Oh, love me.